How much evidence should you submit with your initial marriage adjustment of status application?
This is exactly what we'll be covering in this video, making it the perfect starting point for those of you looking to prepare your application on your own.
But stick around to the end to make sure you're avoiding some serious red flags we will be sharing. If you're new to our channel, welcome. My name is Margarita.
My name is Dixon.
And we're two immigration attorneys.
On this channel, we share new videos weekly with practical tips and tricks on how to handle your own marriage adjustment of status.
Now, other than making sure to complete the forms correctly and without errors, and so long as you have no inadmissibilities, evidence is everything.
In our opinion, evidence is the most important part of your case because it's the foundation of the immigration benefits you seek, and that's why we've linked our evidence list for you to download in the description below.
So, when it comes to preparing your marriage green card application, you will want to submit as much evidence as possible.
Doing so will create the right first impression with the adjudicating USCIS officer.
Overwhelming the officer with a lot of quality evidence demonstrates to the officer from the get-go that you have a genuine and valid relationship.
And this is huge for a couple of reasons.
First, if you demonstrate to the officer the genuineness of your relationship, they obviously may be inclined to waive your interview altogether.
This is big because it knocks out a very stressful portion of this journey and saves you a lot of processing time.
And second, this may generally create a positive bias for the remainder of your journey of getting a green card.
But not just that, it can also create a positive bias and thus smooth path through the removal of conditions on that green card and citizenship steps to complete your immigration journey.
But it's not just about how much evidence you provide, though.
Strategy and completeness is very important.
So, what evidence should you include?
It's best to start with evidence from before you got married. And this is great, especially for those of you with new or relatively short marriages.
This evidence is important because it provides more context to the officer about your general relationship.
Additionally, this type of evidence may be more persuasive than evidence collected during your marriage.
Why?
Well, because you're trying to prove that you have a real relationship.
And if you think about it, the lead up to your marriage demonstrates exactly that.
Everything that happened before your marriage contains everything that ultimately led to your marriage.
So, evidence of before your marriage can include text screenshots, pictures, digital flight tickets from any trips or visits, and any other things that could show your relationship building.
Next, you're going to want to include primary evidence with your application.
Primary evidence is basically USCIS requirements, so there's really no quality or quantity flexibility here.
Examples of primary evidence include marriage certificates, divorce or death certificates in case of previous marriages, proof of legal entry for the intending immigrant, and proof of citizenship or permanent residence for the sponsoring spouse.
It's important to know here that you will want to provide copies of these documents unless and only unless the USCIS specifically requests an original.
This means reading the forms and USCIS instructions very carefully.
While sending originals or copies may not seem like a big deal, you will need original documents for a number of things, both related to immigration and related to your integration into the system of the United States.
And getting originals back from the USCIS is difficult, not to mention the stress associated with the chance for the USCIS to lose or even destroy important documents during all of the processing involved.
But, as stated before, this primary evidence is required by the USCIS to process your case, so it's extremely important to ensure it's included with your initial application if you want a smooth and easy journey.
Next, you're not finished if all you've done is include the evidence that's required by the USCIS and some that shows how your relationship formed and transformed into your marriage.
While not necessarily required, you will need to include a bunch of other evidence that is deemed to be extremely important to the USCIS.
So first, it's important to include evidence of shared finances.
There are a bunch of examples in our free bona fide marriage evidence list below, but here are some of them.
They can include joint bank account statements, joint credit card statements, joint tax returns, joint property deeds or lease agreements, insurance policies that list the spouse as the beneficiary, and any other financial documents showing commingling of finances.
This type of evidence is one of the most important types to the USCIS.
But be careful that you're evidencing your commingling of assets properly.
Since it's so known to be important to the USCIS, it is an evidence type they will closely scrutinize, so you will need to be careful here.
Second, you'll want to include pictures.
We've heard some lawyers suggest including 100 pictures per year of marriage, but that's just crazy.
Let us know with a comment how many pictures you're planning on submitting, and also drop whatever questions you have for us as well.
But either way, this is not only going to be a headache and time waste for you, but it's also going to raise some eyebrows over the USCIS.
20 to 30 photos should be enough, but you will want to be strategic about it.
Briefly, you will want to consider including pictures from various dates, seasons, and locations, for example.
Additionally, consider photos that show friends and family.
Any pictures showing travel and dates you've gone on together are great as well.
Here, you're going to want to provide the officer with insight into your life.
So, after putting your pictures together, consider looking through them while adopting the perspective of someone who is looking at them for the first time and who is trying to determine if the people they're looking at are truly in a real relationship.
Third, you'll want to show that you live together.
This is another very important piece of evidence to include.
Some examples to include could be utility bills, leases, or mortgage statements in both of your names.
Additionally, mail addressed to both spouses at the same address can work as well.
Need another example?
That leads us to the next important piece of evidence, which are affidavits from friends and family.
These are letters from friends, family, and acquaintances that attest to the genuine and bona fide nature of the marriage.
These should be detailed, explaining the relationship of the author to the couple and provide instances that demonstrate the couple's genuine marital relationship.
And here's the cohabitation hack. These can be used by someone who knows your living arrangement to prove that you're living together.
Just make sure to have these people get the letters notarized.
Why?
Because it adds more legitimacy to the letter by showing that it was actually written and attested to by the person it's claiming to be from.
And this leads us to our final comment on important evidence, which is to include creativity with your evidence.
The hack to use affidavits to demonstrate cohabitation is just one of the many creative strategies we provide to the members of our program.
And incorporating creativity is something very important to consider when preparing your application.
As you can see, there is very little evidence that's actually required by the USCIS.
Everything else needs to demonstrate various other aspects of your relationship, such as finances and living arrangements, and that's what makes it so confusing to come up with the right amount and right type of evidence.
Thus, you need to evaluate the weaknesses in your application and utilize creativity in overcoming those weaknesses.
And of course, examples help. So while we will continue to put out new videos to help you out, you should definitely consider applying to our marriage immigration method.
Not only do we provide you with a step-by-step approach to easily handling your marriage immigration from green card all the way through citizenship, and are available to answer whatever question you have throughout this journey,
you also get access to our private immigrant community, where members already in this process are sharing their super successful tips, tricks, and strategies daily.
All details are in the description below.
Finally, a discussion about how much evidence to submit would not be complete without discussing red flags.
After all, the USCIS is evaluating your application for fraud.
So how can evidence raise red flags?
Not only did we make a video on this that you can find in the description, but evidence raises red flags because it's one of the foundational elements of your entire case.
So here's just a few of the important red flags that your evidence can raise.
First, submitting sketchy evidence.
This can be in the form of sending inappropriate photos, opening joint credit cards right before or right after submission of your application, and appearing to fabricate evidence.
In all cases, the USCIS is looking into your evidence to identify things that appear to be ingenuine.
So you'll always want to err on the side of providing evidence that strongly demonstrates your relationship while trying to avoid forcing evidence because you think that it should be there.
And finally, there is undersubmission and crazy enough oversubmission.
Undersubmission makes sense because not having much evidence seems to indicate that the couple must not have a real relationship and or just doesn't meet the bar to establish a legitimate marriage.
But oversubmission may not make sense at first glance.
However, consider that going overboard may come across as trying too hard to prove to the officer that you have a real relationship.
So basically, you need to find balance in your entire application.
Always keep your audience in mind while preparing your application, while seeking balance, and you'll be fine.
Otherwise, thank you for watching.
Subscribe, click the bell, comment, and we look forward to seeing you next time.